And we're back, folks, right here on hashtag AskGSM. I'm Graham GSM Matthews for September 19, 2016, episode 147. I think it is here today. Let me double check. Yes, it is episode 147. We're doing this on the fly, folks. I did not think I was going to be recording the episode here today. I thought I was going to be doing it tomorrow, Wednesday. I just got a really busy work schedule coming up. But I was able to work from my dorm today. Just a lot of extending reasons, a lot of just shit going on right now. So I am able to record the show today on Monday. I don't know if that will be the case in the future. So we got lucky here today, recording the episode here today from the dorm room and getting it up on Monday before Raw on the go-home show before Clash of Champions this Sunday. Cannot wait. So as always, guys, before we get started with your questions, per usual, if you want to send in a question, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM, on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself, or you could drop a comment right down in this very comment section on this very video, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. I don't have too much time today, so let's start with the first question from my brother, Jason Blue Eye Disorder. Be sure to subscribe to him on YouTube, as I always say. His question was, how do you feel about the fact that the WWE took away the Titantron video packages for wrestlers' entrances above the stage when they come out? Did you notice that with the new sets for Raw and SmackDown? Actually, I didn't. I mean, obviously, I noticed the sets, as everyone did. I did not notice the fact they stopped doing Titantrons. I read somewhere, I don't know if it was a comment on YouTube or on Twitter. I saw someone say that a while ago. Oh, I missed the entrance videos. Fuck them for taking them away, or whatever it was. I didn't really think too much of it. And now that you mention that, you're right. I mean, I guess they did. I guess they kind of did take away the entrance videos, which is weird because they've been a staple for so long. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not too happy, I guess. I'm not pissed, but I've always been a huge proponent of entrance videos, so I love the new sets. Whatever gets us a change in setting is great, but I guess if they are no more, and if we're just going to get logos or whatever the hell they're doing now instead of entrance videos, I will be admittedly a little slightly sad, just because they have been an integral part of wrestling ever since I started watching it years ago, 8.5 years ago, so I will miss them if they do become a thing of the past. Captain Sunshine, also from YouTube, I don't get Commissioner Foley. For one thing, why did Dana Brooke get added to the number one contenders match just for slapping Charlotte? You got guys like Cesaro who get forced to do the best of 7 series for a future title opportunity, when Roman Reigns or even Big Cass get much better shots at the top title just for walking to the ring during the ending or start of a Raw. You're right. I mean, I've talked about this before. Not that you shouldn't send in questions like this, but I mean, what do you want me to tell you? There's no logic. There's no logic in this company. I'm not condoning it. I'm not justifying their logic, or their lack of logic, rather. I'm just saying that's just the way it is in this company. It makes me mad just as much as it does you, or irk me, not make me mad. It's a little irksome, but other than that, there's not much we could do. I mean, you just got to accept it. You just got to deal with it, honestly. That's just the way it's always been, probably the way it always will be. I mean, they're getting better with some storyline consistency issues and stuff like that, but you're right. I mean, there's the little things like that. Why the hell Dana Brooke was a part of this match, I'll never know. Other than the fact she was just in there just because it wouldn't be Bayley and Sasha straight up one-on-one, which would have been a massive mistake. So I guess that would have been obviously a train wreck. But thankfully they didn't do that. They didn't do Bayley and Sasha, then blow that match off, the first thing on Raw. But like I said, there's no logic with this company. You just got to deal with it. Emmanuel A., also from YouTube, a week late, but how did you feel about Sasha's retirement fake-out promo? I saw a bit of polarizing thoughts from everyone, even Daniel Bryan Talking Smack last week. He briefly talked about how he wasn't offended by the fake-out. He just didn't think it was very good. Again, I don't know how to feel about that. I didn't know how I felt about it at the time, and even 2 weeks later, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know, I don't know if it was really necessary. I mean, Sasha showed good emotion, but she wasn't crying. And we've seen Sasha cry so much over the years about winning the title, losing the title, putting over Bayley, blah, 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 blah. At WrestleMania, losing at WrestleMania. Like, we've seen her cry so many times. The fact she could not get herself to cry during that promo, if we were supposed to believe that she was going to retire, it just kind of shows that kind of gave away the ending. I do see it from the perspective that friends of Daniel Bryan or Tyson Kidd or people like that who had to retire early due to concussions or injuries, whatever, might be a bit disrespected or feel disrespected for Bryan or for Tyson Kidd or for whoever. I understand that. I didn't think about that at the time. It's not really all that disrespectful to me all this time. I just don't think it just wasn't really well handled. I'll put it that way. Dana Brooke sucks. She's not good. Her involvement in that segment was not good. At the time, I think I wrote my written review for nextdaywrestling.net that I thought it was fine. I mean, it was better than most shit on that episode of Raw, which was not good, especially in that third hour, which was fucking atrocious. I mean, it wasn't awful, but they could have done it better. And I don't know. It was weird, I guess is the best way to sum it up. Elena, I apologize if I mispronounce it either way. The Y, their question was, got a question what Sami Zayn meant on Raw by saying Jericho lost the old Chris Jericho. Is he referring to Lionheart Chris Jericho or WWE? Would you please shut the hell up, Chris Jericho? Because they'll save you the rant, but I never got the appeal of WWE babyface Chris Jericho. He was never a good guy. I mean, he was never really a babyface, by definition of the word babyface. He was cheered, if that's what you mean by babyface, yes. But he never acted like a true and true baby. I mean, this is the Attitude Era we're talking about, people. I mean, even in recent years, his over-the-top, the bringing back the old catchphrases, will you shut the hell up and stuff. People like that because it's something that they can latch onto. It's a catchphrase, like I said. People like that kind of shit. So that's why he was a huge babyface and he was entertaining. He was never a nice guy. The guy would be, berating Stephanie McMahon every single week. So what exactly about that makes him a good guy? You know what I mean? Other than, sure, he's a fan favorite, but he's not a good guy, if that makes sense. So anyway, I've enjoyed Chris Jericho as a babyface before. I think when he turned babyface a few years back, I could see what you're talking about, like early 2000s, babyface Jericho. But when he turned babyface back in 2012 for a few years, up until earlier this year, I was fond of it just because he needed a refreshing change of pace for his character. But yeah, I got to agree. I mean, you didn't really outright say it, but I do agree that Jericho as a heel is infinitely better than Jericho as a babyface. He has been one of the biggest MVPs of this company in 2016. I will go so far as to say that. This guy has been great character-wise and ring-wise, has had some awesome matches with Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, Cesaro. I'm sure his Sami Zayn match will be really, really good at Clash of Champions. So, to answer your original question, what he meant by that, I guess we'll never really know. I mean, he could have been talking about Lionheart Chris Jericho and the fact that Sami Zayn said he idolized the fact that he, traveled around the world and all this other stuff. So he very well could have been talking about Lionheart Chris Jericho, but I think he was just talking about the Jericho that was welcoming of the fans, babyface Jericho, blah, blah, blah. The first KFC, also from YouTube, does Jack Swagger have a chance of going to SmackDown Live? So we saw him on, I guess what you mean is, does he have a chance now that he's on SmackDown Live? Not that he is going to SmackDown, because he's already on SmackDown. I'm pretty sure that's what you meant. I'm pretty sure you watched the product. But I wrote a whole article about this just yesterday for Sportskeeda, if you want to check it out. It's at the bottom of the homepage of nextairwrestling.net if you want to check it out. Why Jack Swagger is not the answer to SmackDown's recent roster woes. Just because I don't think I could see why they added an extra body to the Blue brand, just because they lost Del Rio, Eva Marie's still suspended, Cena's a part-timer, so they need more. Orton's, I guess, kind of semi-injured, so they need, or not anymore anyway. So regardless, they need more people on SmackDown, especially for the lack of roster depth. They make great use out of everyone they have, but they don't really have very deep. They don't have a very deep roster, so they're going to add people to the Blue brand, try to make them mean something, and that's great. But the issue is that no one gives a flying fuck about Jack Swagger in 2016. So they can try. I'm glad for the guy. I'm happy for him that he's probably going to get more TV time on SmackDown, obviously, than he ever was on Raw. I don't think he was ever on Raw up until last Monday. I mean, I've seen him on Superstars and Main Event on shit, but other than that, I don't think I've seen him on Raw since the brand split, which does not surprise me one bit just because no one gives a fuck about this guy. He's been WWE Superstars Purgatory for years. Every single time. I mean, I just have no faith. It's the same thing with Dolph Ziggler. We've seen so many start and stop pushes for this guy that I stopped caring after they botched his face turn a few years ago. He was hot as a babyface. As the We the People babyface, people really wanted to rally behind Jack Swagger, but he came out of that feud of the Rusev looking like such a dope. No one cared anymore. He went back to being a loser on Superstars, like I said. So, I mean, again, I don't really care. I mean, good for him for having more. He definitely has more of a chance of success on SmackDown than he ever did on Raw. That's for sure. But I just don't think people are going to care. So we'll see where it leads. Good for him for getting traded. But if it leads to another main event push for this guy, no thanks. I'd rather see them push Baron Corbin, Apollo Crews, even Kalisto before they try the 18th push, again with fucking Jack Swagger of all people. His second question, is it just me or does TM61 have little to no chemistry together? No, I like TM61. Maybe it is just you. Maybe it's just me. I like TM61 a lot. I think they have great chemistry. They don't have as much character development as Gargano and Ciampa did, but they were also a very vanilla team when they first arrived about a year ago. So it might take some time. They haven't had much TV time. They've won a few matches here and there, but other than that, they've been pretty directionless, vanilla, not much character development. So hopefully that changes. But I think as a tandem, if that's what you're talking about, I think they have great chemistry. They have yet to have a blow-away match yet, but they've had some pretty good to pretty good matches so far in NXT, and I look forward to them challenging at some point the revival for the NXT Tag Team titles. The next question comes from Mitch G. He's got a couple questions here also from YouTube. Should WWE start using the Money in the Bank briefcase like the Hardcore Championship? By that I mean making it legal for the briefcase holder to actually cash in anywhere, anytime, 24/7 hallways, parking lots, hospitals, etc. I always thought they should do something like that. I thought that years ago. That it would be awesome for someone to cash in like when they're fucking sleeping or something. But I guess, the weird thing is, you see this Money in the Bank contract so many times, and I feel like they've done it. They've put the contract up on the fucking website at some point, but who really reads the website that consistently, But I feel like they've done it maybe once or twice. Other than that, this contract has been around for over a decade at this point, over 11 years, and we still have yet to know what the exact details of this contract are. Sure, we know you can cash it in anytime, anywhere, but sometimes they've read that the person you're cashing in on has to be awake. Like when Daniel Bryan attempted to cash in a few years ago, about 5 years ago, almost exactly 5 years ago at this point, he cashed in on Mark Henry on an episode of SmackDown, but Mark Henry was down for the count. So they had it reversed, it didn't count, and he kept the briefcase, whatever, it was just technically not cashed in. But then when Sheamus cashed in at Survivor Series last year, Roman Reigns was down. I mean, he kicked out of the bro kick, but when they rang the bell, Roman Reigns was still down. So this company, like I said earlier with the logic, they go back and forth depending what fits their narrative for that week. But yeah, I think it would be cool. I don't know if it would be... I mean, again, I feel like winning the Hardcore title, it's a meaningless title anyway, so for them to win it in a fucking, ball pit at McDonald's, that's fine because the title means nothing. But I feel like it'd be a bit disrespectful or be taking it lightly if someone won their first world championship or a world championship period in a fucking hospital or one from someone sleeping. Again, it would be creative if it like a Santino guy did it. That would tarnish the entire legacy of the contract, in my opinion. But maybe not exactly when someone's sleeping. I always thought that would be a good idea, but it never happened. I always thought, actually, I wrote an article about this a few years ago to see if it would be possible, because we have this whole live event thing, and WWE has done stuff at live events before to make them more meaningful. The Rock showed up at a house show I almost went to a year ago. I was so pissed. Samoa Joe winning the NXT Championship at a house show. Granted, that's NXT, but still the first major house show title switch in God knows how many years, for a major championship. I'm not talking about the fucking tag titles or the women's title. I'm talking about a major title. NXT title is a major championship, in my opinion. So we haven't seen one of those in a long-ass time. So that being said, I always thought it'd be a great idea if whoever was the contract holder would cash in at a live event, and it would boost live event attendance. Like, people are thinking that anything can happen at any time. Again, I don't know if I would do, like, if it was fucking... Like, when Dean Ambrose cashed in, like, that's a major moment. I wouldn't do it at a house show. But if it's like, I don't know, like a Sheamus again, God forbid that happens again. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's someone like that we don't really care about, do it at a house show, boost that live event attendance, and just make it a must-see moment, make live events more must-see, must get a ticket to it, blah, blah, blah. That's why I never miss a live event for the most part. If there's a live event in the area that I can go to, that I can afford and can feasibly go to, I'm there. Because you never know what might happen. So I don't know about a hospital or something like that, but like I said, a live event would be cool. I mean, it is possible. I mean, it's kind of going beyond the whole 24/7 thing, but you would never expect someone to cash in such a capacity. So maybe at some point down the line, we'll see. Next question comes from, also from Mitch. He's got a couple questions here. Like I said, push, repackage, or release Dash Wilder, Razar from Authors of Pain, or Baron Dax, the former Marcus Louis. Wow, easily push Dash Wilder. I think he's really good, a part of the revival. Razar, I'm not really familiar with really at all, but I'd repackage him just because I do not, I'm sorry. There's so few people in wrestling right now, regardless of what company it is, and you guys know my disdain for Big Show, the character. And the same thing for Baron Dax, Marcus Louis, whatever the hell you want to call him. There are so few people in wrestling that I guess hate, I guess would be a good word. Not the real life people, obviously, but the character. a lot of wrestlers, you guys know, I have so many wrestling shirts. I have a wrestling shirt for pretty much everybody that I care about, which is a lot of people. I have my top favorites, obviously, but I also care about a lot of people. Like Cesaro, he's not my top 5, but I still like him a lot, so I'm still a fan. You know what I mean? Baron Dax, Marcus Louis, whatever you want to call him, could not have given 2 shits about that guy when he was in NXT. I thought he was just the drizzling shits, especially when they shaved him bald. He looked like a freak. The guy sucked in the ring. They never gave a crap about him. I could not care less about him, even now that he's in TNA. So I'd release his ass, repackage Razar into what? I don't know, but you would keep him around over Baron Dax, in my opinion, and then push Wilder. His next question. Logically, shouldn't Dana Brooke have been declared the winner of last week's triple threat since both Banks and Bayley's shoulders were down, or do triple threats not work that way? I can see what it took a second for me to understand what you were saying, because she did not get a scoring, deciding fall. She lost. She was not involved at all. So it's not like Bayley and Banks, technically they both lost, but at the same time they both won too. So, if anything, Banks and Bayley should have a rematch just one-on-one. I hope that doesn't happen, because I don't want to see Bayley and Banks done this early in a Bayley's main roster run, obviously. But Dana Brooke didn't, it's like, she really did nothing to win the match. So I could see what you're saying. It's almost the equivalent of like when Darren Young won that Battle Royal a few months ago, when I think it might have been Cruz and Corbin eliminated each other from the Battle Royal, just leaving Darren Young. Kind of the same thing, but the rules are different, because Brooke, in this type of match, obviously you have to get either a pinfall or submission to win the match. She did neither one of those things. So, no, she should not be declared the winner. If anything, it'd be a tie or a draw between Bayley and Banks, but they completely neglected that to answer that, or neglected to mention that during the match last week. They completely ignored it because it wasn't what they planned to do. It was a botch. Completely ignored it, and they moved on. Typical WWE. Next question. Rank Chris Jericho's WrestleMania matches 25 through 32. Good question. He's had a lot of good ones if you really think about it over the past 7-8 years. I would put the match with AJ at the top of the list. I think it's an underrated match, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the match with AJ. I think that's probably the best WrestleMania match he's had since 25. The match with Punk up next. I thought that would have been my number 1, but I thought the Extreme Rules match from the following month in Chicago was better. So I put that number 2. Number 3, the match with Edge, also a really good match. Number 4, the match with Fandango, which was the wrong result, obviously, but the match itself wasn't that bad. And then 25 at number 5 here, coming into the list, just because it wasn't a good match. He beat Snuka, he beat Piper, and he could hardly get a match out of those guys. And the match with Snuka was fine, or fucking Ricky Steamboat was fun while it lasted. And their match of Backlash was better the following month. So that was the worst. 29 up next with Fandango. 26 up next with Edge at number 3. Number 2 with Punk at 28. And number 1, AJ Styles at WrestleMania 32. Next question, from Mitch. Should Gargano and Ciampa be able to compete as a tag team in addition to being in the Cruiserweight division? I feel like they're too good of a team not to pursue the tag team championships. Well, I feel like it won't really matter, just because I think they are going to be going for the belts one more time, maybe in Toronto or in NXT TV. I'm not sure exactly. We are still 2 months out from Toronto TakeOver, so they do have some time. They'll probably do it before then. It looks like they're setting up that match before TakeOver, and then they'll do a TakeOver. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're doing the finals, from what I heard, of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic at TakeOver, so they might not even have an NXT Tag Team title match at that show. I guess we'll see. But anyway, so I think, what am I trying to say here? Oh, yeah, I think Gargano and Ciampa, if they have the title match, the tag team title match before then, they'll do the match, and I feel like Gargano and Ciampa are bound to split at some point in the very near future. So they'll probably be singles guys in the Cruiserweight division on Raw, is what I imagine. So with Ciampa going heel and turning on Gargano, I would love to see a feud between them on NXT. This is where it gets tough, because they're technically Raw guys now. They did not announce them initially for the Cruiserweight division last Friday on WWE.com. Maybe I feel like just because they want to finish up their storylines in NXT first before they call them up, even though they already promoted them for Raw. So anyway, I don't really know. I feel like we're probably going to get one more match with Revival, and then either after that match or during that match or a little bit afterwards, not immediately afterwards, but maybe on the subsequent episode of NXT, we have Ciampa turning on Gargano. So beyond that, I don't think we'll be seeing them as a tag team for much longer, to answer your question. Amanda 450 Splash, also from YouTube. Do you think that the Dudley Boys should have had a 10th tag team title reign on their most recent WWE run? Absolutely. I think they probably would have. The only thing that hindered them, that prevented them from winning their 10th tag team title, was the fact that the New Day were and still are in the midst of the longest reigning WWE tag team title reign of all time. I don't know if that was the plan from the get-go to have them break the record. And the Dudley Boys were great, and they are great. I think the thing was that I think people would have been happy to see them win the tag team titles. The thing was that New Day were and still are, to an extent, one of the hottest acts in the company. And it would have been foolish for them to cut that short, even if it was for like a month or two before putting the belts right back on New Day. They did the same exact thing, if you can recall, in the spring of last year when they were just getting hot and they took the titles off them for the primetime players. I was glad they got a little run of the belts, but New Day were the infinitely more over and entertaining team. So they didn't want to do that again. So they kept the belts on New Day, and they've been champions ever since. So again, in any other time period of tag team wrestling, they probably... Same thing with Ryback. Same exact thing with Ryback. I feel like Ryback definitely would have been the WWE champion had CM Punk not been in the midst of the longest reigning WWE title run in the past 25 years. So really, it was the right place at the wrong time for the Dudley Boys when it all comes down to it. Their second question, what is your dream match that can still happen? I got a couple. I did a whole article about this for What Culture this past weekend, about seven or eight, I think it might have been 7, WrestleMania 32 dream matches that could realistically happen. And these were all on there. AJ Styles and Finn Balor, to me, is a dream match. I mean, your definition of dream match might be different than mine, but these are my dream matches. Cena and Taker is still a dream match. I know we've seen it before, but not in over 10 years. And also Brock Lesnar versus Kevin Owens. I don't know if they're, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus John Cena levels of dream match, or Shawn Michaels versus Daniel Bryan levels of dream match. But they would be considered dream matches for me in today's WWE. So those are 3 dream matches I still think can happen. That can still happen at some point in the future. Amanda's third question here, what is your dream match that cannot happen? Sting and Taker. I mean, obviously there's a lot like Macho Man and Punk, and there's a lot. Someone else asked me about the dream matches in a second. I'll get back to that. It's actually not the next question, but the one after that from Brandon, which I'll get to. But that is one dream match that can no longer happen, unfortunately, just because Sting has since retired due to WWE and them not clearing him, so that's not happening. So it's really unfortunate, but that was one dream match that never came to fruition, which could have, realistically, if you think about it, at WrestleMania 31, Sting faced Triple H and fucking lost, and Taker faced Bray Wyatt in a fine match, but at that point, why not just do Taker and Sting? That, to me, makes no sense. So anyway, that's one dream match of mine that cannot happen anymore. And her last question here, what is your dream WrestleMania location? England. I've said this before, and I know that's not all that plausible due to the time difference and all this other shit, but I want to see it happen. I really, if anything, just a pay-per-view alone. Whether it be SummerSlam or a B pay-per-view, you could test it out. I mean, they already did it with TakeOver London. In the pay-per-view, the special was at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the thing is now, they can do that. I mean, I don't know if they want to do a pay-per-view at 3 o'clock in the States, but it's 8 o'clock over there. But I think I don't know. I think they could. WrestleMania fucking starts at 5 o'clock anyway, so why the hell not? Really? I mean, England would be up for it, too. If it's a 7-hour show and ends at 1 o'clock here and ends at like fucking 5 there, those crazy bastards are up for it, so why not? The crowd would be amazing. It's something we've never seen before. And like I said, TakeOver London last year started at 3, which I know a lot of people can't watch, but that was on a Wednesday, though. If we're talking on a Sunday, football starts at like that time anyway. So what's the point? What's the difference? You know what I mean? So I think it is plausible, and it's not impossible. It's difficult, but not impossible. But yeah, England, whether it be London, Manchester, probably London, would be at the O2 specifically, would be my dream WrestleMania location. So Brandon has got a loaded question here. We'll try to get through it all. All right, assume of all of these wrestlers would be alive in their prime and perform to the highest level for this next question. Also assume every match got over to the crowd to its maximum potential. Rank these dream matches from worst to best and how much you would want to see them. So the dream matches he listed include, and then I'll give my rankings afterwards. I already have the rankings listed out. It took me a couple minutes to figure this out, but these are the dream matches that Brandon listed. CM Punk versus Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan versus Eddie Guerrero, Dean Ambrose versus Cactus Jack in a TV-14 era street fight. Number 5, The Rock versus Triple H in a Hell in a Cell to blow off their feud for their entire career in a WrestleMania main event. 6, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan. 7, Undertaker versus Sting. And 8, the 4 Horsewomen individually, Trish, Lita, Molly, Holly, Victoria, Nikki Bella, Natalya, Naomi, Chyna, Emma, Ember Moon, Asuka, and 5 more of your favorite all-time female wrestlers in an Aztec Warfare Rules match. Wow, that's a great last match, too. I gotta put it last, though. I mean, that's not... It's a dream match, but it's like... That would be... I don't know. I feel like I would rather see all the other matches first, so no disrespect to the women, but that is coming up last in number 8. Number 7 would be Daniel Bryan versus Eddie Guerrero. In terms... Again, this is all subjective. You said in how I would want to see it, how much I would want to see them, not Billy from Idaho or something. So this is all obviously going to change depending on who you are, but these are my preferred dream matches from least preferable to most preferable. Like I said, 8 was the women's match. 7 was Bryan and Eddie. 6, I would say, would be Dean Ambrose and Cactus Jack in the TV 14 era street fight. Number 5 would be Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan. Number 4 would be The Rock versus Triple H in a Hell in a Cell match to blow off their feud to their entire career in the WrestleMania main event, as you mentioned. Number 3, Undertaker and Sting. Number 2, Shawn Michaels versus... Oh, no. Number 2 was CM Punk versus Savage, if only for the promos going into it. But in number 1, I got to go with Shawn Michaels, AJ Styles. I mean, the more I think about it, and not only their faith, but just the way they wrestle in the ring and how they've been the best in their respective companies for a total combined of maybe 30, 40 years between the two of them. Shawn Michaels and AJ would be my ultimate dream match. So if I had to pick one of those matches that I would want to see, just one out of all the 8 that you mentioned, it would got to be AJ HBK. So that would be my number 1 dream match. I would love to know if you guys agree. Moving forward into the Twitter questions now. First from my brother, RJ, at RJ_Marceau, the working man. Swig a soda for the working man, Mr. Marceau. At this point, do you think Money in the Bank is important enough for WWE to consider going from the Big 4? Oh, fuck, sorry, that's the Average Grunts question. Sorry, RJ. His question, I'll get to that question in a second. His question was, do you think the Cruiserweight division will help Raw, not drag? And thoughts on TJ Perkins winning the Cruiserweight Classic? I think it will help. I don't think it'll save Raw. I don't think anything can really save Raw at this point, unless it's 2 hours long. I think you could. I mean, I know people have thrown around the idea. I think we've talked about it here on the show before, about making the whole first hour of the show devoted to just cruiserweights. But they're not going to do that. You know they're going to kick off the show with one of their big stars, The Authority, Mick Foley, or whoever. So you know that's not happening. But I would feature them in the first hour. Putting them right before the main event is the fucking death slot. So that would be atrocious. So hopefully that's not the plan. You got to put them in the first hour. I would have them kick off the show tonight. They're probably going to kick off the show with something with the Authority, or the Authority figures, rather. The Authority's technically no more, but you know what I mean. Or fucking Owens or Rollins, which is fine, but I really think they should kick off the show tonight with the newly rebranded, what they've been hyping for almost 2 months at this point, the returning Cruiserweight division. So, no, yeah, I do think Raw, it will help Raw not drag, especially for the first hour or so. The third hour is usually where it starts to hit you like, oh, fuck, we have another hour left. And then you get the Braun Strowman squash, the Nia Jax squash, a terrible promo, a Darren Young, Titus O'Neil match, or some shit like that is usually almost always in the third hour. Or some unfunny New Day segment, so... Anyway, I do think the Cruiserweight division will be a major ups to Raw, absolutely. And my thoughts on TJ winning the Cruiserweight Classic, I thought it was good. Was he my favorite to win? No. I mean, I'm glad he did win. I like Grand Metalik, but of the two, I would have gone with TJ Perkins. I've been a fan of his. He's really, really good in the ring. He's got that great story that he grew up homeless. So it was a great feel-good moment for once in this company, which is very rare to come by this day and age. Not only in WWE, but just in general, in life, in the world, it's very hard to come by a great feel-good story like this one. So I'm glad he won. I mean, my pick was Kota Ibushi, but he didn't sign, so they're not going to put the fucking belt on someone who didn't sign with the company. Same with Sabre. So that said, Metallic did sign, hence why they ended up in the finals together. But if they knew that, which they probably should have known from the get-go, Ibushi was very adamant in saying that he was not signing. Maybe they thought he would change his mind at the last second, that he would sign right before the finale. I don't really know. But they did know from the get-go. I mean, I guess it would have been kind of a shame if Ibushi didn't end up in the finale somehow, in some form or fashion. But really, now that I look back at it, I would have had Alexander win the whole thing. I mean, the guy is great. I thought he and Ibushi had the best match in the entire tournament. He was easily the most over. Ibushi was over. But I think Cedric Alexander was the most over guy in the entire tournament. I would have had him win. I mean, he's signed anyway, so he could have won if he ended up in the finals. So I feel like they should have figured that out earlier, that Ibushi was not making it to it and was not making it to, the finals or whatever, because that he wasn't signing. Or at the very least, put Alexander in a position to get to the finals. Like put him in middle league spot. Have him go to the quarterfinals, and then have him beat TJ Perkins to win the belt. But they didn't do that. It's not a huge deal, but I was glad, all in all, to see TJ win the Cruiserweight Classic and become the inaugural, in WWE's words, because I know we've had a Cruiserweight champion before, the inaugural WWE Cruiserweight champion. At the average grunt, now we get to your question. My apologies, sir. At this point, do you think Money in the Bank is important enough for WWE to consider going from the Big Four to the Big Five? I see what you're saying, but I feel like, I don't know, I like the allure, the allure or whatever, of the Big Four. I mean, Survivor Series hasn't been shit in years, but that said, I just think that the whole purpose of the Big Four, the whole reason why we have the Big Four, which WWE does not call it, obviously, but the whole reason why we have the Big Four is because they were the original 4 pay-per-views in WWE. Money in the Bank has only been around since 2010, which is a while, 6 years, almost 7 years by next year, but it's not as much as 20 years, 25, 30 years as the rest of the pay-per-views. So, as one of them, I would consider it one of the most important and consistently entertaining pay-per-views of the year. That is without a doubt, a fact. But still, I would not consider it a Big Four just because the Big Four should be the original 4 staples of the company. Money in the Bank is not that. You know what? Also, I would not do that just because they're probably, like I said, as good as the pay-per-view is from year to year, they're probably going to get rid of it at some point, whether it be a Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania, or making it dual brand, or just, I don't know. They have to scrap it. They're not going to make it dual branded. They shouldn't, especially 1 month or 2 months before SummerSlam. Why would you? So, and now that I think about it, just scrap the whole show and just put it back at WrestleMania. I think someone else asked me about that, but you might as well. I don't know why you wouldn't. Just because you're not going to have one Money in the Bank ladder match with one show for one brand and not the other. And they shouldn't make it dual branded. So just because we'd be 2 months out from fucking SummerSlam at that point, so why would you bother? So I would just put the match right back at WrestleMania, in my opinion. Anyway, his second question. Also, regardless of whether it's considered a big pay-per-view or not, do you think it should be a dual... Or I just answered that question. That's what I was thinking of. I was just thinking of someone asking me about it being a dual branded show, and that was you. So I already answered that. At NJWade_, my brother Noah's question was, do you think there is any potential for the more casual fans to begin the experience, to experience major event overload and tune out after a while with 17 pay-per-views a year now, take over live event specials on the network, the Cruiserweight Classic, whenever that returns, etc., etc. Yeah, I just think it's a weird thing, because I feel like the only people that really would experience the overload and watch everything, like watch Raw, watch SmackDown, watch the CWC, the only people that really complain about there being too many shows are me, are you, and are the hardcore people that are going to watch anyway. I have never once seen someone watch so much wrestling, as much wrestling as I watch. I watch fucking everything, dude. I watch Raw, I watch SmackDown. You guys know. I fucking watch Main Event and Superstars, just for the fact of reviewing it from that website. So regardless, the point I was trying to make was that I've never seen someone watch so much wrestling and then not watch it all. Like, they're either already watching Raw maybe once in a while, but they're not tuning in. Anyone who watches anything, is a hardcore fan, and they will continue to do it. They will complain about watching or complain about being there being so many shows to watch, but still do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the only people who tune out and experience that major event overload are you and I, or like hardcore fans, I feel like casual fans don't experience that because they don't watch everything. Most people just watch Raw and SmackDown. If even SmackDown, most people just watch Raw. I know a lot of people who just watch the fucking network shit. I know Jason, who I know is listening, and I answered this question earlier, the first question of the show, he only has the network. He doesn't have cable. He watches Raw and SmackDown and Hulu Plus, but that's an hour and a half most weeks. So, he's not experiencing major event overload just because he's not watching. He's watching the shows, but he's not watching every second. He has the network. He doesn't have cable, so he's watching the pay-per-views. He's watching the CWC, NXT. So you know what I mean? So he's not watching everything. I know my friend Tom here at college, he also watches everything. And we talk about all the time how there's so many shows to watch, but we still watch them. You know what I mean? Even if I wasn't reviewing some of this stuff. If I wasn't reviewing Main Event or Superstars, maybe I wouldn't watch it. But beyond that, I would still watch the CWC. I would still watch NXT every single week. I would still watch Raw, Smack. You know what I mean? So I see what you're saying, but I feel like the only people who would start to tune out and get sick of the product after a while are the casual fans who barely watch anyway. And if Raw's not doing it for them, they'll just not watch because they don't care. At Hardy DX fan, when Shinsuke Nakamura gets called up, what show would you put him on, and what matches would you want to see from him? I've said in the past, Samoa Joe has got to be SmackDown bound, but do you put both Shinsuke and Samoa Joe on the same show, especially coming out of their feud from NXT right now? It's still going on to this day. So do you still put them on the same show? I would say no. I would put Nakamura on Raw, especially with Balor being gone for right now. I feel like Nakamura should be on the main roster yesterday, but ASAP at the very least. I would put him on Raw. I mean, I don't really have a strong preference. My only strong preference is Samoa Joe on SmackDown. SmackDown needs more top heels. Samoa Joe is fucking great. The matches he could have with Cena, with AJ, with Ziggler, with Orton would be phenomenal. No pun intended. So he's got to be on SmackDown. Nakamura, I think, could get away with being on Raw, especially in the absence of Balor for the foreseeable future. So if I had to pick, I'd put him on Raw, but I would have no issue with him going to SmackDown. At Sean Marcus, he's got a couple questions here. Favorite Money in the Bank ladder match? I've said this before, but the Money in the Bank ladder match from WrestleMania 24. I have a lot of favorites. I did a whole top 5, I think top 7 actually. No, it's top 5, sorry. On the random video blog. So if you go to the playlist of the random video blog here on the channel and go back a few months, I think I put it up on June 17th, so about 3 months now. I did my whole top 5. On that list were the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match from 2011, the Raw and SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder matches from 2013, the one, this year's one, I didn't rank that one on there, but I really enjoyed this year's, and also the Money in the Bank ladder match from 2014 too was also really, really good. But I think my all-time favorite Money in the Bank ladder match would be the one from WrestleMania 24, which is phenomenal stuff. Next question of his, push repackage release, TJ Perkins, Gran Metalik, and Cedric Alexander. Whew, that's tough again because all these guys are really, really good. But as I said earlier, Alexander is an absolute star. Perkins is too, but Alexander was undoubtedly the most over guy in the entire tournament. So I got to push him. Repackage Perkins, whatever that means. And of the three, I just don't care. I think Metallica is really good, but I don't care for him as much as I do Alexander and Perkins. So I'd release him, repackage Perkins, and whatever else, I don't know. Anything but Manic, we'll say that. Anything but Manic or Suicide, he should be repackaged into. And then push Alexander. His third question, is there any logical reason behind having Enzo and Cass lose to the Shining Stars? Absolutely not. In WWE's mind, their logic is that if they have the Shining Stars beat Enzo and Cass, they too will become over. They are absolutely dead wrong. They're so dead wrong. They are not any more over now than they were 2 weeks ago when they first beat Enzo and Cass. Maybe they think in beating an established act such as Enzo and Cass, and I mean, they've only been here for 5-6 months, Enzo and Cass, but they're still one of the hottest acts in this entire roster. But regardless, what I was trying to say was that I think in their mind that fans will start to care about them more if they pick up meaningful victories, but still no one gives a fuck about these guys. They're good wrestlers, but they bore people to tears, and no one cares about these guys. So, no. In reality, there is no logical reason. In WWE's mind, their reason is that they want to get them more over, they want to make people care about them, but that will not come in at the expense of Enzo and Cass. They should not be losing to losers like Primo and Epico in the Shining Stars. No one cares. Next question from Cody Collier 37. Who do you think TJ Perkins will feud with first and why? I guess we'll find out tonight on Raw, and I would hope that every title is defended at Clash of Champions, so I don't know why you wouldn't do a Cruiserweight title match at the pay-per-view. I imagine they'll probably do some sort of, like a lot like what they did with the women for Backlash. They put every woman in the division, other than Eva, who was still suspended at the time, obviously. I imagine they'll probably do some sort of multi-man match for the championship at Clash of Champions, but I saw someone, I think it was at Ryan Dilbert, a fellow Bleacher Report featured columnist. I'm pretty sure it was him who suggested that they do TJ Perkins and Metallic 2, Part 2 at the pay-per-view, just because what other stories are you going to build up in a week? You know, the pay-per-view Sunday, they debut tonight, so They should have a match in the show. I'd be shocked if they didn't, especially considering it is a Clash of Champions pay-per-view, and the theme is that every championship must be defended. So it defeats the purpose if the belt is not on the line. So anyway, that what I'm trying to say is that I think the best course of action right now would be continue the feud with Metallic, whatever, just because that is the go-to feud. We just saw that last Wednesday. They had a really, really good match, and that's the only real logical story right now that they don't have to build up in the matter of a week, because that backstory is already there from last week. Next question, Mr. Singleton 16. Do you think we will see the women in different matches like tables, I Quit, hardcore, etc. in this revolution? I hope so. I think we will at some point. We technically did in NXT in the Iron Woman match, which was phenomenal. But I'm still waiting for something on the main roster. I was really hoping. I was a huge advocate on making Charlotte and Sasha. I mean, I guess at this point it worked out for the better, just because they went on second. But I was really a huge advocate of making their match at SummerSlam their rematch. You know, a last man standing match or an I Quit match, something. I mean, we've seen a women's I Quit match before from Beth and Melina at One Night Stand 2008, and it was a really good match too. Who knew? You put two good workers in there with a good backstory, and look what you get, a great match. So, again, Sasha and Charlotte have a lot of great history, so they're facing each other on Sunday. I would add a stipulation to the match. I don't know if they could do it so soon, so close to Sunday, but I'd make it no DQ, no holds barred. It's funny. A lot of the matches you mentioned, we have seen a women's tables match before. We saw that at TLC 2010. We've seen an women's I Quit match before from One Night Stand 2008. I know we've seen no disqualification women's matches before. Not often. We had a Falls Count Anywhere match between Melina and Mickie James about 10 years ago or 9 years ago on Raw. So we've seen these matches before. I think the real big thing, in addition to getting stipulation and gimmick matches, and it's got to be good. It can't be fucking title on a pole match or, you know, bras and panties or a mud wrestling. Not that shit. And you know they wouldn't do that nowadays with the whole rebranding of the women. So regardless, I think it is possible, but I think the real big step, in addition to doing gimmick matches, is putting them in the main event of a pay-per-view, which I don't think is happening Sunday. I'd mark out if it did. It's probably not, and I don't think it should, over Owens and Rollins, their first ever one-on-one encounter. But in the future, for a B-level pay-per-view, I don't see why not. At John Wealth 23, thoughts on Miz possibly going to Raw? On the bright side, I do really like the angle between Miz and Bryan, which, by the way, 6 years ago today, random fun fact for you, from September 19th, 2010, quick side story for you, Night of Champions 2010, one of my favorite matches of all time. I've said this story like a million times, but one of my favorite matches as a fan, my 8.5 years as a fan, Bryan beating Miz, his former mentor, to win his first championship in WWE in the form of the U.S. Championship. Just a really, really good match. Probably one of Miz's best matches of all time in his career, honestly. A great moment for Bryan. I met Daniel Bryan 2 weeks after that as United States champion. So it was a really cool moment for me. And only the second ever pay-per-view that I ordered. I ordered Royal Rumble 2010, and I ordered Night of Champions 2010 too. Now that I mentioned that, I'll probably go back and watch it later on today before Raw, because I really like that show. So anyway, so what I was trying to say. Yeah, Bryan and Miz have history dating back 6 years. I like the whole angle they're doing right now between them on the whole contract negotiation. It makes it feel like a real brand, which I said from the get-go, they need to really take this shit seriously. I hope Miz does not jump to Raw just because he is, for one, the Intercontinental Champion. I don't think he will. But even if he dropped the title, which he should not, but even if he did anytime soon, he should not go to Raw. I feel like Miz is a great fit for SmackDown. He's a great fit for talking smack. I said from the get-go I was really happy Miz ended up on SmackDown. I hope he stays there. So I would keep him on the blue brand. If they move him to Raw, oh well, but I feel like he'll get lost in the shuffle immediately. The guy's a much bigger star. And who knew? As soon as he jumped to SmackDown, his career, he suffered a career resurgence. So, who knows what can happen when you move to the blue brand. So I feel like he's a great fit for SmackDown. I would not move him to the flagship show. Second question, push, repackage, release. Jason Jordan, Chad Gable, Cesaro. Chad Gable. I think I said Chad Shable or Cable or whatever. I think I said Cable. Chad Gable and Cesaro. Whew, this is going to be rough. Cesaro, I feel like there's so much untapped potential with Jordan and Gable as single stars, so I would push Gable. I think he's the more energetic and more charismatic of the two, so I'd push him, repackage Jordan, and release Cesaro. I think all guys are great, but I think Cesaro has been there, done that. He hasn't been world champion yet, but I think at this point in time, there's more of a chance that we could see him. We could see either Gable or Jordan. Jable, I guess, would be their tag team name if it wasn't American Alpha. I think there's a bigger chance we see either one of those guys as world champion in the future, other than Cesaro. So I think Cesaro, we've seen a lot of him. He can go flourish over in Japan or Ring of Honor or wherever. And now we're repackage Jordan and push Gable. Final few questions to close off here. I think we have 2 questions. One more from John, from @JohnWeld23. Favorite and least favorite installments on No Mercy? I watched them all a year ago for Wrestle Rant, so cheap plug. If you want to check out all my reviews of every No Mercy from, I think, 98, or I think it started in 99. There was one UK installment in early 99, and the second one later on that year. I reviewed every installment from 99 to 2008, every installment to date, up until this year's show, obviously. So check those out on Wrestle Rant. They're from about a year ago, so if you go a little bit further down the playlist, you can check them out. I don't really remember much about No Mercy. They had some good shows, none that I was like, wow, that was amazing. Other than O2. O2 is a really good show. Didn't really care much for Kane and Triple H. Or was it? No, yeah, RVD and Triple H was Unforgiven. No Mercy was Kane and Triple H. Did not care much for that match. But you can't go wrong with a show that featured an amazing tag team title match between, I think it was Edge and Rey Mysterio versus Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle in the finals of the WWE Tag Team Title Tournament. The tournament to crown the inaugural SmackDown WWE Tag Team Champions. Just a phenomenal match. And to cap off the show with a great Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. So I think the O2 show stood out to me as one of my favorites overall. Maybe 08 too, just because I was a fan of that time. I enjoyed that show. What did 08? Oh, 08 obviously had Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho in the ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship. They had Batista and JBL. That was a squash. There really wasn't much else on that show. But I love the main event. So again, I love the year of 08 just because I grew up as a fan that year. So yeah, that's probably my 2 favorite installments that come to the top of my head. 02 and 08. Least favorite? Again, I don't really remember all that much about these shows on the whole. I just remember not liking 07. If you guys go listen back to that review, I shit all over that show. Probably more than I should have, but I just did not like that show. There was a really good main event between Orton and Triple H in the Last Man Standing match. But other than that, I mean, we had seen that before. They just don't have the greatest of chemistry. They did like 3 WWE title changes in one night. They had an ECW title match end in like in a matter of a minute. Just a lot of matches that had fuck finishes or no one cared about them or whatever. So, again, that would undoubtedly have to be my least favorite 07 show just because I did not like that show at all. So, least favorite 07 No Mercy and favorite installments 02 and 08 installments of No Mercy. Final question here from Matt Swagzio. Thoughts on WWE possibly purchasing TNA? So, they're not. I've seen a lot of conflicting reports. That none from anyone credible, really. I know the New York Post put something up about it, but they are not purchasing TNA. I know the whole bid thing. I'd be shocked if that happened. The funny thing is that John and I were just joking about this on the train ride to Brooklyn back over SummerSlam weekend. That I think it might have been John who said that. Do you think that if TNA got purchased, because we were talking about the influx of TNA guys in WWE right now, we were saying that I think he asked me, do you think that if TNA got bought out by WWE, do you think that would be the biggest, like the equivalent to WCW being bought out by WWE? And I said no. Just because TNA is not nearly as big, has never been as big as WWE or WCW ever was. So it would be a big news story. And I said I'd be like one of 5 people who actually cared. Which might not be true. I think a lot of people care about TNA, but it's not nearly as hot of a brand as it used to be. The in-ring and TV product has been, like I said, time and time again, been really good. It's been really good throughout almost the entirety of 2016. But there's just people stopped caring. They stopped giving them chances. It's like the boy who cried wolf. When they finally started doing things right, no one's paying attention because they've given them so many chances, they just tuned out a while ago. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think it's happening. I'd be shocked if it did. I read something today, a report from like someone on Twitter, so take it for what it's worth, that WWE, if anything, was interested in purchasing the library, not the promotion, which I can absolutely believe, because why the hell would they want to purchase TNA, the promotion? Really? I mean, WCW, even in its final years, for as bad as they were doing in the ratings and as horrible as their in-ring product was, they still had a fan following. So if they made SmackDown the WCW, or if they made the Thursday show Raw and Monday Night Nitro, that was the initial plan before the whole Buff Bagwell Booker T match bombed on Raw. So and they scrapped that immediately. So any plans to reboot WCW were thrown out the window. So anyway, they would not do the same thing with TNA. They would not make the Thursday show. They would not make SmackDown like TNA Night or something. Just because they have such a lot smaller of a fan base now than they ever have before. So there really is no worth in purchasing TNA. I saw someone make a great comment yesterday that WWE, if anything, in purchasing TNA and running the promotion as it is now, keeping it alive, would not lead to an influx of profit or something. It would be a waste. They'd be throwing away money and keeping TNA alive. Why would they do that when the product is almost dead as that is? So if anything, like I said, they would just be interested in purchasing the library for the likes of Sting, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, all these other guys, which to me is hilarious because you spend fucking, how many years has TNA been around? Almost 15 years at this point. You spend 15 years, as Kevin Owens would say. 15 years I've been doing this for. If you spend 15 years ignoring the fact that TNA exists, other than the fact that fucking Stone Cold says it on his podcast, or Sting on his documentary, or JBL on Legends with JBL, other than that, TNA does not exist in WWE's universe. They've never once said them on Raw or on SmackDown or any major WWE program. So that being said, I do not see them. Like I said, that being said, I think it's funny that they would buy the library. I see why they would do that, but it just, again, it's double standards. But you spend so long trying to hide the fact that they exist, and then you purchase a library and say, hey, AJ Styles was in this company called TNA for 15 years. You know what I mean? I just think it's funny. Anyway, though, so no, WWE is not purchasing. They are not purchasing TNA whatsoever. I do not see that at all. So that is not a possibility. If anything, they would purchase a library. Even that I would be shocked for. I heard it would be for $7 million, but I heard TNA, it's not happening, or they're not interested, or WWE's not interested, or whatever. So again, I don't see that happening, but we'll see what happens with TNA in the future. So that's it, guys. That is #AskGSM here today for September 19th, 2016, episode 147 here today. We will be doing episode 150 on Columbus Day. I already know ahead of time I will be off from my internship on that day. So hopefully we will get an hour's show worth in on that day, which is 3 weeks away, believe it or not. Can't wait for that. But yeah, I don't know what the future of the show will. I'll still be doing this show, obviously, but I'll be going into work at like 11 each day. So if I wake up early enough to record the show before I leave and try to post it, I can. I cannot promise you going forward that the episodes of #AskGSM will be going up every Monday, like in the afternoon or at night. I'd be getting home around like 9 or 10. I got late days on Mondays, so they might not be going up till Tuesday or even Wednesday, depending on what my schedule is. So we'll see. But in the meantime and in between time, folks, as always, if you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself, or drop a comment on this very video down below in the comments section. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, folks, as always, enjoy Raw tonight, Clash of Champions on Sunday. So send in your post-pay-per-view questions. If you want to do it after the pay-per-view, that is totally fine. The deadline for questions is usually like Monday mornings, so I'd appreciate if you sent it. Even if I do the video on Tuesday or Wednesday, I like to have the questions good to go by the time I'm ready to record. So if you want to send them in after the pay-per-view ends, be sure to do it quickly. But like I said, you got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all those other outlets. You got many different ways to send in your questions here to the show. So that being said, guys, as always, I appreciate the support for you listening, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. All that stuff means hell of a lot to me. We are quickly approaching the 1,000 subscriber mark here on YouTube. So don't think we'll hit it before the end of the year, but anything is possible. And with your support, we just might. So keep on pressing that like button, sharing the videos, getting the word out there about the show, the channel. Videos are up almost every single day. #AskGSM, WrestleRant, WWE Network and Chill, WrestleRant Radio, excerpts, random video blogs, and so much more. Be sure to subscribe today, guys. So enough of my cheap plugs. Enjoy Raw. Have an amazing week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.